moving on from county council candidates at large to judge for Superior Court 4. It's my pleasure to hand the moderating duties over to my friend and veteran newsman since 1984. He's covered everything. He is such an important part of our community and always will be, Mr. Jeff Smith.
All right, Gina, thank you very much, and I couldn't have done that without you, for sure. We're going to be introducing the candidates for Tippecanoe Superior Court 4 now, and when I call your name, each individual candidate will have a couple minutes to introduce themselves. So, Jonathan Dean.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jonathan Dean. I am currently a Deputy Public Defender here for Tippecanoe County. I'm originally from Montgomery County. I've spent most of my life until going off to college, but I do have local roots, but not Tippecanoe County. I was briefly in the academic world for a while, did a dissertation on Native Americans, but then decided to do something a little different and go into law. I've been a lawyer since 2000. I started out at the Indiana Department of Natural Resources in Indianapolis, where I was in administrative law. In 2001, I moved up here under Jerry Bean, worked as a deputy prosecuting attorney until 2008. And from 2008 to 2010, I taught English in China, came back here as a deputy prosecutor. I've been in Superior Court 4 for about 5 years total of my 14 years, and now I am a Deputy Public Defender. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan Dean. Next candidate, Matt Sandy.
Good evening. My name's Matt Sandy. I've been an attorney in Lafayette, Tippecanoe County for about 32 years. In talking with my family, we're always looking for ways to give back to our community, including running for judge. When I learned Judge Zeman was retiring, I guess a couple years ago, we had long discussions about it and decided it's the perfect way for me to serve and give back to my community. I've never run for any position before. I won't be running for any other position. This is the job I want. It's a job I feel I'm most qualified for. It's a very important court to our community. It is the front line in the opioid, meth, and synthetic drug issues that we've got in Lafayette. It's a perfect fit for my qualifications and for my experience. I'm very excited about the job. If given the opportunity to serve, I will bring all of my passion, all of my energy, all of my experience and public sector experience into this job and try to make everybody proud of our judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt Sandy. Next candidate, Kimberly Wright.
Thank you, Jeff. First, I want to thank everyone who's responsible for holding and hosting the event tonight. We do appreciate that. Again, my name's Kimberly Wright. I have an undergraduate degree in accounting and finance, and I also have my law degree. I own and operate my own firm and have since 2003, while also helping operate a small family business for 20 years. I've been a federal bankruptcy trustee for over 20 years, which is very similar to a judicial role. I've filled in for the other judges in many of the courts, most often and most recently in Superior Court 4. I've been active with the GOP, volunteering for many campaigns. I've also been the Republican Women's Treasurer, as well as their 2019 Woman of the Year. I also recently graduated from the Richard Lugar Excellence in Public Service series, and I'm a precinct committeeman as well as a state delegate. My broad legal, business, and administrative experience is what fits Superior Court 4, and I'd be honored to be elected its next judge, and I ask you for your vote.
Thank you, Kimberly Wright. Now to our round of questions. The first responder will be Jonathan Dean. And the question is, please share your vision and philosophy regarding your service on the bench of Superior Court 4.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, I'm very concerned about the protection of constitutional rights. So my vision would be to always begin with the Constitution. A couple of amendments, particularly due process in the Fifth Amendment and in the Indiana Constitution as well. So my concern would be protecting the constitutional rights of all residents, all citizens of the county. The Indiana criminal justice system is founded upon principles of reformative justice, and I think that would also be a major aim of mine to instill such results into cases before the court. Reformative being, to reform people, it also would involve and include appropriate punishments where necessary. As far as the criminal court is concerned, I would be very concerned about upholding the constitutional protections of all citizens. As far as the civil jurisdiction of the court, also the due process rights of any person who comes before the court. I think it's very important that pro se people without legal representation are accorded the same dignity and respect, and I would go out of my way to make sure that those people also were able to further their constitutional and legal rights in the court.
Thank you, Jonathan Dean. Matt Sandy?
Thank you. I'm what you consider a small government constitutionalist. Always the Constitution has to be the North Star. We always have to be sensitive about due process rights, equal protection for all litigants in a courtroom. However, the first three priorities for any judge in any court has to be public safety. There's a lot of opportunity for that in this courtroom. Again, this is the courtroom that is dealing with both drug users, drug abusers, victims of drug abuse, and a court has to be able to be sensitive to the needs of all of them, but always looking towards the Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt Sandy. Kimberly Wright?
Thank you, Jeff. I agree with both of my colleagues here that constitutional rights and public safety are very important. This court has traditionally been about half small claims and evictions and about half criminal cases. So when you look at the types of cases that generally come through this court, you're facing the people who are facing hardship. And with hardship comes situations where people need to be held not only accountable for their actions, but also need some vision of their future, where they're going. They need to have some sort of swift yet fair and efficient ruling on their cases so that they can move forward in their lives. This court has traditionally been the court, at least the last several years, that has all of the drug cases, and those will be interspersed between 3 of the courts next year. But this still will be partly a criminal court and then also partly a small claims court. And I think my philosophy is that a judge needs to be a good listener, not like litigators, we're used to being the ones who are talking and the ones who are presenting the case, but the judge needs to be a good listener and to listen to what the parties are saying, listen to what the facts are, and then apply the law fairly to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Our second question goes first to Matt Sandy. As a candidate for judge, what do you consider your greatest strength and your greatest weakness?
Well, I think my greatest strength is my experience, not just the length of my experience, but the type of experience I've had. When I started 32 years ago, one of my regular jobs on Tuesday evenings was Tuesday night court in this very court. At that time, Judge Donay was the judge. The deputy prosecutor was Laura Zeman, who's now the judge. That was basically the creation of the case management structure system that the court operates under today. It was kind of a pioneer system at that time. I'm proud to say that I was part of developing that and have been ever since. I have done what they do in Superior Court 4 pretty much every day for the last 3 decades plus. Not just trial work, I've also done administrative law, appellate law, I've filed appellate briefs, I've argued before the Indiana Supreme Court, the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago. About everything a lawyer can do, I've done a lot. I've trained other lawyers through our ICLEF, the Indiana accrediting body for lawyers in Indiana. I've served as Judge Pro Tem in every Tippecanoe County court, specifically the high volume courts to this day. In short, I have trained and prepared my whole life for this job.
Kimberly Wright?
Thank you, Jeff. As I said earlier, I think that the broad base of my experience, both in civil areas of the law as well as I do have criminal law experience and still do deal with a lot of cases that have criminal implications to them with my clients. I think that a broad base of experience, as well as the administrative experience that I've gotten as trustee, will benefit this bench greatly. It's a high-volume court. Cases need to be moved through efficiently, yet treating everyone with dignity. I also am frugal. I've always been frugal, and anytime I can find a place where the court could save money, I'm going to try to do that because it's taxpayer money and it's very important to all of us that pay taxes. But essentially, I think my background in the broader areas of the law will serve both sides of the court, both the criminal and the civil sides as well.
And Jonathan Dean.
Thank you, Jeff. I would say my greatest strength is a lot of trial experience working both as a deputy prosecutor and now as a public defender, so in the courtroom a lot, working with juries and judges on cases. I think another one of my great strengths is I've been I guess you would call it a drug prosecutor for many years, starting out in 2002. Worked in Judge Donay's court. I also worked under Judge Bush in Superior Court 2, Don Daniel in Circuit Court. I was also involved in the problem-solving courts, beginning with the drug court in 2002, so working with a number of judges on that. As a deputy prosecutor, I was involved a lot of times with the drug task force, so I actually saw cases as they were being developed, helped with search warrants and affidavits, things like that. And now, another aspect that I hadn't really appreciated, I was paper attorney for the prosecutor's office from 2014 to 2018, which is basically covering post-conviction filings. So people who believe that they had had some miscarriage of justice in the course of their case. And working on post-conviction, I've seen the 100 ways that cases can go sideways and go horribly wrong. And so that's given me a greater appreciation for things needing to go right, and the judge does play a role in that, and so I think I'm aware of a lot of the things that could go wrong and hopefully can bring that experience to bear.
Okay, thank you. And our next question goes first to Kimberly Wright. In your opinion, what is the greatest single challenge facing Tippecanoe County's criminal justice system today?
Well, this court is, like I said earlier, a criminal and civil court, but in terms of the justice system as a whole, obviously right now the COVID crisis has created a big problem in terms of getting cases into the courts, and many of the judges have come together collaboratively and come up with different ways that we could ease back into the court. I believe most of the courts are opening more broadly next week. One of the courts specifically that I deal with has been using some technology. The Zoom facility, we are starting cases by Zoom, at least for me, next Thursday. I've been involved with both the federal and state courts, and it seems that technology, as it progresses and as the courts and lawyers are more willing to utilize those technological advances, we're able to do things more, be more efficient with the cases, and to get people and their cases and their lives moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Dean?
Thank you. I might have given a little different response if we'd had this meeting back in March or February before all the impact of COVID. As a public defender, I deal with very marginal people economically, socially, and a lot of people with mental health issues. So I think we're going to see something down the road. I mean, we've flattened the curve as far as infections are concerned, but I think there are going to be social consequences coming that we may not really understand the total weight of that's going to be on us. So I think a lot of people are going to end up being marginalized economically who weren't previously running into court very often. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for the criminal justice system, not to overly criminalize people in the future. Before March, I think I would have said mental health issues are very important, and they're still going to be important. We need more treatment. We need more programs to get people into. Again, as a public defender, most of my clients, I would say, have mental health issues co-occurring with addictions and other issues as well. And that's an ongoing problem. It's a problem for the community. It needs to be addressed. So I think we're looking at, down the road, some economic results from the COVID crisis, and then still dealing with things that were a problem before COVID. So I think it's going to be a lot more challenging than I would have expected when I first filed for candidacy.
Matt Sandy?
I agree. The immediate short-term difficulty is going to have to do with the pandemic and the aftermath of that. We still don't know the entire effect of what that's going to be. I would say many of the changes I intend with the case management structure, not major changes, but tweaks I've been trying to do for years, some of which I've been successful in getting, some I haven't, ironically are now going to be necessitated by the aftermath of the COVID virus. The much more use of email, certainly Zoom meetings. We are able to do video conferencing on hearings now, hearings by affidavit. When we do the pro forma hearings, instead of having personal appearance of people who could be at work, could be in therapy, have the attorneys by email or otherwise. So I think the logistics of it we can work through, and we've already started in a big way in the last 2 months to do that. Some of the courts have been operating smoothly throughout this. We're also going to see a big effect, I would predict, and it's not a wild prediction, I can assure you that the Public Defender's Office is going to explode over the next year. I've got some ideas for that. One of them I've talked about before with Judge McVeigh is utilize employment agencies, and if people are going to be requesting public-funded lawyers, then a condition is that they seek employment. But we're going to have to deal with a lot of the issues with respect to the pandemic.
Our next question to Jonathan Dean. Do you believe voluntary professional and personal community service is a necessary commitment for people who hold public office? And what types of community service are you currently involved in, or have you been involved in the past?
Thank you. I think that is important to get to know your constituency in some fashion or another. So I would say any professional in the community should probably be involved in certain activities. Right now, I'm a commissioner for the Historic Preservation Commission of West Lafayette, so I work with that body to ensure sort of preservation of historically important buildings. So, thanks. That's one of the activities. I'm also somewhat of a sportsman. I get out. I'm an active shooter. So I have been out at Wildcat and also Linden Conservation Club. So I think that's an activity as well. Some of my other activities aren't necessarily community-based. I'm a member of the Amateur Radio Relay League, which is, you might know as ham radio, member of the Audubon Society. So I've tried to have a few community-based activities as well as some sort of greater personal interest activities as well. But I would agree that that's important. Everyone needs to find some activity, find some balance with their professional life, get out and get involved with the community.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan Dean. Matt Sandy?
Thank you. I don't think just public officials. I think all of us should do what we can and give it back to our communities. As I said, my family is constantly trying to find ways for us to serve our community. I don't know which camera I'm looking at. They're all off me now. But if I could sum up in one word why I'm doing this, why I'm running for judge, it's service. In effect, if successful, will be closing down probably one of the most successful small firms in town. I'm doing it to serve my community. My family, certainly over the last several months, has had lots of opportunities to serve our community. This is a community that I grew up in Tippecanoe County courtrooms watching my dad try cases, and I've lived here and been here my entire life. I love this community, and again, the primary reason I'm doing this is to serve my community.
And Kimberly Wright.
Thanks. I agree with both Jonathan and Matt that community service and involvement in your community is very important. And like Matt said, not just as a public official, but also just as a human being. It keeps us relatable to the people that we're around during any of the casework that we do. And I think as a judicial candidate, I think being in the roles where you can be around others that have similar interests or maybe different interests allows you to possibly be more relatable and able to listen better once you are on the bench. I know that I've committed a lot of my time over the last 5 or 6 years to the Republican Party as well as the Women's Club. My favorite was the Women's Club, but I've also committed a lot of time to, as an attorney, I've given some free legal time, as well as I'm sure the other 2 candidates have as well, to, for example, the Hannah Community Center. I've done lots, as any parent spends a lot of time with activities that would involve their children's schooling and school activities. That takes up a lot of time, but also involves the community. And I've also, probably more recently, and maybe because of the COVID crisis, bringing more of the issues of public need to the forefront. I've been very active in helping people get donations made and different things done for the homeless, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question goes to Matt Sandy. What has been your greatest accomplishment in your personal life and in your professional life?
In my personal life, I'm one of those guys lucky guys that hit the lottery when it came to family. People that know me know I work and I'm with my family. I have wife, I've been married almost 27 years. We have 2 great kids. Our oldest, Mason, is 26. He graduated from Central Catholic, was an honor student, a state finalist athlete, went to the IU Business School, and lives and works in Chicago, has a great life and career plan. Couldn't be prouder. My daughter, Micah, is 15. She just finished her freshman year at CC. She's no grades this year, but she's a great student, a state champion gymnast, and an all-around great kid. I'm most proud of, personally, of my family. Professionally, I've been involved, as you know, Jeff, in a lot of high publicity, high profile cases. I think the ones I'm proudest of, through the 90s, I worked for the city of Lafayette on all the railroad relocation cases, representing the city. I feel like I did a great job, saved a lot of millions of taxpayer dollars, and had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, Kimberly Wright?
It's easy to say what I feel that my greatest personal accomplishment is, and that is raising my son. I have a wonderful 11-year-old son. Happy birthday to Hayden today. Sorry I can't be with you right now. So he's my greatest personal accomplishment or the greatest personal thing in my life. Kind of like Matt said, family is very, very important, and I'm fortunate to have a very good family, a very hardworking, blue-collar family that raised me with very good values. Professionally, as Matt said, you work on a lot of cases over your years, and you're very proud of different accomplishments and different results that you get for different clients to make their lives better. But professionally, in terms of an honor that I received, I would say that would have been when I was appointed as a trustee. I hadn't even been a practicing attorney for a full year when I was approached by Margaret Robb, who is now an appellate court judge, and asked if I would be interested in applying for her spot, which she was leaving as bankruptcy trustee when she went to the court. I was shocked, and for someone, even though I did have to go through the federal process, for someone my age, I think I was 26 years old when I was appointed in '99 with no experience, and to raise that position from the ground up was really a humbling and honorable experience.
Okay, thank you. And Jonathan Dean.
Yes, thanks, Jeff. I would join with the other 2 candidates here and say family is my greatest accomplishment. I have a wonderful, bright daughter who is entering junior year at Purdue studying engineering. Just fantastic watching her grow up, watching her interests expand. And I can't take very much credit for that. I'm afraid most of that goes to my wife, but I'm very proud of our daughter and what she's embarking on in terms of her career. So family definitely is the most important personal accomplishment. As far as professional, in 2014, as a deputy prosecutor, I was asked to become the first, what they call paper attorney or paper lawyer, basically handling almost all post-conviction filings for the prosecutor's office. So as I earlier said, the post-conviction relief, sentence modifications, all sorts of these various filings that take place, and also, as a matter of fact, doing civil forfeitures in Judge Zeman's court of drug monies that were seized. So I had the task of taking all of these responsibilities from all of the trial deputies in the various courts and developing my own routines, getting into court at the proper time, which when you're in 6 or 7 courts, that's a little difficult. But I'm very proud of having gotten that initiated and off the ground, and I think it's been a great asset to the office.
Okay, thank you very much. Kimberly Wright, the question goes to you next. Judges in this community have been actively involved in our problem-solving courts for a number of years. Being involved in these specialized courts takes a lot of energy and a lot of passion. Please share your thoughts on these courts and the future of such programs.
I know that problem solving in specialized courts is a big deal, and a lot of the different counties have been implementing these specialized courts. And I know that we have our Veterans Court, which has, I believe, recently just graduated some of its first candidates, and then the drug court, the drug treatment court, was also a project that was offered in Superior Court many years. I think it was before Judge Zeman's tenure, but there could be tweaks to that program to get it back up and running. I know that these specialized courts are going to deal with obviously a specialized area or clientele, and I think one of the more important maybe to get back up and running because of all of the drug issues, not only with the opioid crisis, but as many of my law enforcement contacts have told me, the drug cases can be cyclical, and it's a new and different, not necessarily new, but a different drug that's problematic as we go. But the drug treatment court would likely be, in my opinion, one of the first that the county would be considering because of those issues being at the forefront so heavily in the last several years.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Dean?
Thanks, Jeff. As I indicated earlier, I was involved with Judge Donay in 2002 when the very first drug court started in this county. I was the prosecutor's representative on that program. Then I was also a representative on Judge Bush's cocaine methamphetamine program, which is basically an offshoot of the drug court for handling more serious drugs. I was also involved with the forensic diversion program on behalf of the prosecutor's office, as well as the reentry court. And then finally, I helped Judge Person in getting the Veterans Treatment Court off the ground. I'm amused that it seems like every year National Public Radio has a news feature on this new thing called drug court. So they've been around since the 80s. I think the first one's down in Miami, Florida, and that one seems to still be running. The problem with a problem-solving court is you need commitment. You need a buy-in from various agencies and providers, and that has kind of been a weak link in some of the other programs. The only two that are still running are Forensic Diversion and Veterans Treatment Court. I would look at something like a drug court, and I would be glad to try to get one off the ground, but they do require a lot of work. They require a lot of commitment. They require a lot of services. So it's something everybody has to be on board, and so both the prosecutor, public defender, defense bar, law enforcement would all need to be involved in this. So perhaps there is another problem-solving court in our future.
Okay, thank you. Matt Sandy?
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. I agree also that these are important tools for a court to use, important tools for a community, both for rehabilitation purposes and for public safety. I also had some involvement in our problem-solving drug court. I am aware of the problems that were there. They're not simple problems. They're problems that are going to have to be dealt head-on. Those are problems I'm prepared and committed to deal with. And Mr. Dean's right. We have to have buy-in. There was some problems before, and the people that were motivated to go in the court weren't going to get out of it maybe what they should have, as well as a lot of other problems. There also, but that's something, and it does take a lot of time. That's something I'm committed to do, and a person that has a relationship with the prosecutor's office that can make that happen. Also, Judge McVeigh, I've spoke with her. She's been working on a mental health court. Excellent idea. That will dovetail into a lot of the issues in Superior Court 4. I'm not going to steal any of her thunder, but I would say that I'd be delighted to be able to follow her lead in that court as well. But these are really important. We've just let them die. There's a lot of funding out there available that don't involve Tippecanoe County taxpayer money, and that's something that needs to be developed.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question goes first to Jonathan Dean. Tippecanoe County's current jail census is lower than it's been in years, but a few months ago, jail overcrowding was a significant problem. Please share your ideas as to how our judges in Tippecanoe County can help address jail overcrowding at the same time maintaining a high level of community safety.
Okay, that's actually a great question. I think one of the things would be getting people out of jail who are misdemeanants. I think we've seen that now with the COVID issue, that a lot of people are receiving bench tickets to report to court. They're not necessarily being incarcerated. So that's something I would like to look at working with the other judges. As far as there is definitely a public safety angle. I think even if you have overcrowding, you can't say that we should just open the jails. I think we've seen some cities doing something along those lines with COVID that's kind of worrisome. So I think public security has to take precedence, even if there's an issue of overcrowding. But I think with lesser offenses, trying to get more people out on bond, to the extent you can get people out on bond and get them working, get them participating in the community, that's a plus. So I'd like to see maybe some use of getting people out with less serious offenses, but I think otherwise, I think that's something you definitely have to sit down with the county government and the sheriff's department to come up with a good solution to that.
Okay, thank you. Matt Sandy, the question.
Thank you. As I said before, first three things a judge has to consider is public safety. In deciding who should be incarcerated and who shouldn't, there's a number of factors that a court has to consider in making that determination. Not just public safety, but that's a big one. While jail overcrowding at times is an issue, that can't be a factor in deciding whether a person their actions merit being incarcerated or not. That's an issue for the city council. While again, the judge has a lot of tools there, deciding whether to send somebody to jail or not can't be dictated by jail overcrowding. We now have a multitude of tools, the community corrections programs, our court services programs, the problem-solving drug courts, problem-solving courts if we can get those enacted and continued. And again, the type of people that are in Superior Court 4, there are oftentimes a lot of alternatives to incarceration. But when it comes to public safety, we can't be worrying about jail overcrowding. If somebody is a public safety threat, then they need to be incarcerated.
Kimberly Wright.
I agree with both of my colleagues in terms of looking at having some alteration of some of the lesser offenders being either released, lower bond, and judges do have a bit of discretion as to how those things would go. My big concern is that the community does see the judge as kind of the ultimate protector. Victims want to be protected. defendants, want their rights protected as well. So the public safety versus the defendant's rights are often a really difficult balance to make. If I am elected judge, I plan to work closely with all of the county officials, community corrections, work release, all of those different programs that are currently available for people in lieu of jail time, and also develop, good relationships, good working task forces with a lot of the providers in the community to come up with innovative and new ideas to hopefully, lessen the crowding. But I do agree with Matt that can't be the only thing that dictates what a judge would do.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question goes to Matt Sandy. Good judges are well-versed in law, are unbiased interpreters of the law, display a proper judicial temperament, and fairly dispense justice. What characteristics do you exhibit that would make you a good judge?
Thanks, Jeff. That's really the question, isn't it? I mean, we assume that we all are educated, we know the law, we've got advocates in front of us giving us the law on both sides. If a trial judge makes a mistake, there's an appellate court, not ideal, but an appellate court to fix that mistake. So what really differentiates good judges and great judges is judicial temperament. I think that's probably my strongest point. As I said, when I started, I've been to most every county in the state, federal court, state court, appellate courts, trial courts. I've been in front of 100 courts and hundreds of judges. I doubt there's very few lawyers in the world that have been in front of as many judges as I have. I've been in every possible context. I've been the new kid 3 counties over, sitting in front of an intimidating panel of federal court judges, and nowadays they're my contemporaries who I practice law with who now become judges. There's judges who I practice out of the same law office with in our county. There's judges that I've been co-counsel on cases with, who I've tried cases against, who I have been judge pro tem while they were attorneys trying their case. I have seen good judges and great judges. Most of the great judges have been in private practice for a long time and have not just been drawing a government check. They've gone out and had to earn it, or they don't make the next check. So I think judicial temperament is the most important thing. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm even-keeled. I don't get too high or too low. I try to help all of the younger lawyers, and I will continue to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Kimberly Wright?
Thanks, Jeff. I think that judicial temperament and being unbiased and being even-keeled is very important, as Matt just said. I also feel that it is very important to have had a background in practice that not only has had you representing plaintiffs, defendants, in the bankruptcy court, debtors, creditors, but also for me as a trustee, I've had to preside over these proceedings and weigh the benefits and detriments of both sides of the cases. I've had to mediate different disputes. I've been on different sides of nearly every dispute you can think of. And so I think it's important to not necessarily be an activist. We're all advocates. All 3 of us are advocates in any day. But you need to be a good listener. You need to be fair. You need to apply the law to the situation at hand. And knowing the law, or at least knowing how to apply the law to the situation, and listening to the facts is really important.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly Wright. And Jonathan Dean?
Thanks, Jeff. I think my answer would be pretty short. One of the skills that I bring to the job, or would bring to the job, is that I'm very studious. Having started out as an academic, coming from an academic family, we've always put great store in learning and studying. So I approach law questions as intellectual challenges, and even seemingly small cases can still be challenging and demand that kind of study and inspection. Training and experience as a trial attorney. So there are some things I don't have to study that I'm prepared to do, to work in, say, jury trial settings with the rules of evidence, trial rules, and things like that. So that kind of background is important. A judge who will crack the books and look at things, look at more complicated questions, and as I indicated with my post-conviction practice, often looking at some pretty obscure questions, though, that are very outcome determinative. I think most of my friends know that I'm a pretty calm individual. I'm very fair-minded. I'll listen to people. As a public defender, I have to listen to my clients, and I have to give them respect. I give respect to my colleagues, and I think that's probably the most important thing for a judge is to make that effort to get along with people. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the question portion of tonight's forum. Now we're going to give each candidate a 1-minute opportunity for some closing remarks, and we'll start with Jonathan Dean.
Thank you, Jeff. I look forward to serving the people of Tippecanoe County. Being a judge is something that I think every attorney considers to be the highest challenge and the ultimate embodiment of the legal profession, to be in the situation where you have to look at the evidence, you have to look at the facts, you have to consider the arguments, you have to consider the public interest, as we've talked about, public safety. You have to look at all those things and be able to balance. And I find that a very exciting prospect. I have thought about being a judge for a long time, and so this year it was, why not go ahead and give this a try. I'm very eager to serve the people of Tippecanoe County. I'm very eager to protect the people of Tippecanoe County and to see that the Constitution is upheld and also to see that public safety is protected as well. So I would like to ask for the opportunity to serve all the voters of Tippecanoe County in this position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Matt Sandy?
Thank you, Jeff. I've been in Tippecanoe County my entire life. I love this county. I'm doing this for one reason, to serve my county. This is something I've discussed with my family for a number of years. With Judge Zeman's retirement, there's a hole left in this court that needs filled. It's an important court, important to our community. It's a court I've been involved in for over 3 decades. I am doing it for the sole purpose to give back to my community that I love, that I've lived in my entire life. If given the opportunity to serve, nobody will work harder than I will, nobody will work out of love for this community more than I will, and nobody will be more concerned about public safety than I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And Kimberly Wright.
I think service is definitely a common theme here. We're all three ready and prepared to serve our community. And each of us have had many years of practice, and many of those years of practice naturally lead many attorneys to want to be a judge, to be somebody that is the impartial arbiter of all of the cases, and to be the good listener that's on the bench, setting a good example for all of the litigants. I feel that my experience, both in my broad-based legal experience as well as my business experience, that I can run a court, run it efficiently. As I stated before, I've been a bankruptcy trustee for over 20 years, and much of that job requires me to do judicial-like roles. I'm ready to do this job. I'm energetic, and I've got the wherewithal and the energy to be the best judge of Tippecanoe Superior Court 4.
Okay, and that does it for our candidate forum for Superior 4, and that concludes tonight's Tippecanoe County GOP Forum live stream event for the Republican candidates for Tippecanoe County Council and Superior Court 4. I've done a few of these things in my lifetime, but never to such an empty room. And I would like to congratulate the candidates in both parts of tonight's forum for handling it so well. So congratulations to you. Those of you at home, have a good evening.
And thank you, Jeff. That's okay. Thank you, Jeff. Certainly a treat to have you and Gina with us tonight. I think most of us in the room feel like we grew up with you over the last 20 plus years. Notice I said grew up, not grew old, But I want to thank some other folks who have been of great importance to pulling this off tonight, starting with our producer, Mr. Steve Klink. In addition, I'd like to thank the Lafayette First Christian Church for opening up their sanctuary for us on the 7th of May, and then the Fellowship Hall for this event tonight. Our videographers, Robin Sturgeon and Ross Klink. Our sound engineer, David Caddy from Smith Sound. Kyle Rice, who put together our social media package. Also, Congressman Jim Baird for his address earlier, and from his office, Sally Sechrist, who helped make that happen quickly for us. From the Republican Women's Club, B. Smith and Isabel Hogue, our timekeepers this evening. And again, last but not least, our moderators, both Jeff and Gina. It meant an awful lot to have you with us tonight. Thank you again. In closing, what can you do? We have shown you 3 judicial candidates for Superior Court 4 and 6 candidates for County Council at large this evening. You've had an opportunity to hear from them and get to know them in a time that it's difficult for campaigns to get out and campaign the old-fashioned way. You need to vote. And how can you do that? You can vote by mail. Those applications are available online at indianavoters.com. They must be received by our Board of Elections office by 11:59 next Wednesday, the 21st. Absentee ballots should then be received by the Board of Election by noon on Election Day. There are 8 early voting centers in Tippecanoe County. Those will open on May 26th. If you need information about the location of those vote centers, you can look at our Facebook page or contact the Board of Elections office. On Election Day, there will be 14 Election Day vote centers. That information can be found at the same place. Again, www.tippecanoe.in.gov/Board of Elections. Thank you again for being part of our live stream this evening. We will leave this information posted on both our YouTube channel and at Facebook Live. Have a safe and good night.